Hello, welcome everybody to a very special kind of video. Maybe you have already heard I took down the LMS Prague tournament with 1045 people in the Czech Republic. Biggest tournament since COVID in Europe at least, so yeah. And here's the video how I got there. Okay, so if you wanna skip this intro and Decktech, don't worry. The match starts at 5 minutes, you can go there or listen to me what I have to say. But first let's go through the matchups I faced. So I have to say I got pretty lucky with my matchups, especially in day 1. There were a lot of good matchups like Scam, Yawgmoth, Zoo, Merfolk. Round 6 was the first match I lost to Hammer, which I have to say he had both times extremely good hands, and there's not much I could have done. But I definitely got revenge in the next round against Hammer again. Got the win-win, and then round 8 was my first feature match against Titan, which if you have seen is pretty controversial because my opponent kinda made some misplays in the second game with triple pacting Titans, maybe miscounting his land drop and wasn't able to give 2 Titans haste. So I tapped down 1 Titan and he died to his pack triggers. But yeah, got that one. And round 9 was the no-show versus Canister because he had to play like his showcase qualifier on Magic Online. So yeah, that was day 1 with 8-1. Day 2, the good matchups continued with the mirror, easy win-win, then blue-white control. Which kind of funny that my only 2 game losses I had in the whole day 2 was both to blue-white control. So yeah, we played 2 times versus Creativity, versus Living End, and versus blue-white Narset control, which was on camera, but I could not get the footage of that game, so it was a really sick game though. And yeah, then top 8, we're gonna watch all 3 games, but before we do that, I know most of you guys who follow me already know my deck, but for everybody who doesn't, who is new here, this is the deck I played, 5-color Keruga Elementals. The game plan is quite simple, you just try to outvalue your opponent and surround them in card advantage. Mostly done with Wisdom Reefs and Omnavs and Keruga. So yeah, the game plan is to just turn 2, Leyland binding something, ice their land, just interact a bit with them, try to stop them from what they're doing, and then turn 3, play one of the powerful 3-drops in Wisdom Reef, Teferi or Fable. Most times Fable is the best turn 3 play, but of course sometimes Teferi is better against those Cascade decks, and also quite some other matchups, but yeah, mostly Fable turn 3, because if you go turn 3 Fable, they don't answer your token, you can get turn 4 Omnav with a Fetchland trigger, which is the most powerful play that can make. So we also got 2 Dead Guns to deal mostly for Ragamans, no artwork here, okay. We got 2 Electrons, which is one of the best cards in the deck most of the time. I mean, mostly Electron comes down, the game is over. No artwork, but alright. And yeah, 2 Furies for Solitudes, classic elemental core, nothing too fancy. We got 26 lands, 2 Caverns, 7 Shocklands, 3 Triumphs, some fetches. And yeah, sideboard. Most important sideboard cards are probably the 3 Disputes for the Murktide matchup. I didn't face any Murktide this tournament, so could have been something different, I guess, but I was expecting to play against a lot of Murktide. So we have the Disputes, we have the Endurance for Murktide as well, we have some Murderous Cuts. Got asked a lot about why Murderous Cut and why Vindicate. First thing is, it kills Elishnon, and if you're playing the Mirror and your opponent drops Elishnon, you can't deal with it, you lose. That is why there is Murderous Cut. Also the Vindicate. Vindicate mostly for opposing lands, like Tron lands, bounce lands from Titan, Valakuts. But can also kill, you know, random stuff like you chase the Mind Sculptor. Like I said, Elishnons can come in against some decks, but not every matchup. Like, you don't bring this in against some Murktide or Breach deck. Much too clunky. Yeah, then we have the Force of Vigors for Titan, for Hammer, all the Enchantment Artifact decks, 1 Aura and 1 Force of Negation for Creativity. And yeah, that was the deck tech. I also made a sideboard guide for this deck. The link is in the description. Here it is. And yeah, let's let's get to the games. So yeah, in the first game we face off against Black-Red Scam, which usually is a good matchup, and especially on the play, because I was first seed going into the top 8, so I was on the play for every single match of the top 8, which is extremely important, especially in this kind of deck, where you really wanna be on the play. Don't exactly remember how much he mulliganed, but I think to 5. So yeah, let's watch the game.
Deck names that need to be swapped. There we go, we've got that sorted for you.
Okay, now it's correct. Now it's correct.
So yeah, so Marcus on the right of your screen there. Obviously our first seed managing to winning in last round on camera. And this is open deck list now. Now we're in the top 8. Each player knows the exact 75 that their opponent has brought to this weekend.
Which also means that you should be able to find all the deck lists on the MTG Melee website that just got posted in the Twitch chat. So check that out. If it's not available right now, it should be at
super short
any moment, because all the deck lists are public right now.
Or just follow Fire Shoes. The second it goes live, Fire Shoes will retweet it. That man is a godsend to the community. As we're going to see a Dolphy Voidwalker come down on turn number 2 here. We're going to crack our fetch stand for our turn. Obviously, that will go to exile underneath the Dolphy Voidwalker.
So let's talk about the decks here. Mateus playing Rag the Scam, cards like Fury, Grief, with the Evoke mechanic, and you're using cards like Undying Malice, Feign Death to sort of bring them back when you're kind of like creating a lot of mana on turn 1 or 2, like sort of making this play that shouldn't be possible this early in the game. So you're kind of trying to draw these cards together, but it also works just as a regular, Rakdos midrange deck, and we have learned that Rakdos midrange cards are good in every format. So we have cards like Ragavan, Doughty Voidwalker, Seasoned Pyromancer, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. I think Matesh is also playing 2 copies of Blood Moon in the main deck. Plus you have the the usual cards like Thoughtseize. So.
And here comes Fable of the Mirror Breaker. But I do want to talk about this namesake card of the Elemental decks. This is one that gets him turning and burning Risen Reef. Every time an Elemental or itself enters the battlefield, we get a trigger. We get to look at the top card. If it is a land, we have the option to put it into play if we want to. If it's not, we get to put it into hand. Pretty powerful card in a deck that every card is an Elemental, right?
Yeah, Elementals, 4-color deck, everything except for black. You have Omnath, obviously, the value engine. If you're playing 4 colors, might as well play Leyline.
So yeah, this was a spot where I had to think a bit. My hand was Elesh Norn, Solitude, Fable and Dead gone. And it was pretty risky to just slam the Elesh Norn there, because if my opponent has a Terminate, and he draws 2 more cards with his Fable, so if he finds his Terminate, he can kill my Elesh Norn, cast it with Doughty, and then I'm in a whole lot of trouble. But I still made the play to play Elesh Norn, because I thought at least if he has a Terminate and he does that, I can still bounce it back to my hand with my Dead Gun. So yeah, that was the reason I made that play. Pretty risky, but I got rewarded because he didn't have anything, so...
One really cool card that we have seen in this Elementals deck is, yeah, exactly, just
here we go.
Yeah, Elesh Norn. We saw a match between Elementals and I believe it was the Amulet Titan deck.
Yep.
The Elemental player resolved Elesh Norn, and the Titan player just looked at the board.
Just decided to stop. He's like,
yep,
I can't win.
Let's go to the next one.
So for Elesh Norn, let's see if we can get that up on the screen for you all. So if you don't know what that one does, obviously there are 2 copies in Marcus's deck here. Let's see if I can get this up on the screen for you all. Nope, that's definitely the wrong one that I've just selected.
So the Elementals deck looks like, a lot of expensive cards. People would think this is probably too slow for Modern, right? But you also have a lot of cheap interaction spells. You have Dead Gone, you have, to deal with cards like Ragavan. You have 4 copies of Fire and Ice, and obviously there's Leyline Binding that you can play pretty early as well. Plus you have the Fairy, to stop all these Cascade decks from doing these Cascade shenanigans.
Look, giving everything double triggers and stopping your opponent's triggers seems absolutely crazy. Also, the art on this card looks insane.
It was Fable just played?
I think Fable was just played. I was literally wondering, does that trigger? Because it's all permanents, I believe. We'll see. There is judges stood right next to the tables for all of our top 8. So this is where we have it. It's where we have main tournaments. And we're going to pass it back. So we spoke about how good Fable is in multiples.
Actually,
it's the ETB.
It's the chapter triggers or something. It's not okay. It doesn't. Yeah, right.
Oh, we got some big names in the chat. Hello, Mr. Goldfish. Hello, Mr. User. Hope you're all enjoying the show. Thank you all for tuning in. And then we're going to see this Solitude come down here. Double triggers, double Risen Reef triggers. This is where the value entry starts turning and burning. So top card, we're going to put it in hand. Next top card, we're going to put this land into play. Works really well with Omnath, being able to play multiple lands in a turn and get multiple triggers. Dead gone. 2 damage to that token. Get it off the battlefield.
That's the cheap interaction. Risen Reef gets to attack. We're up to 7 lands to Mateus's 4.
And this seems brutal, right? When you're playing against a deck where the powerhouse is kind of Fury and Grief, but when they're into ETB now, they will do nothing.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the red-black deck. How many cards do actually still do something? Seasoned Pyromancer, Grief, Fury. Yeah, there's not much, and I don't think there is that much removal either. I think there's 3 copies of Terminate, 2 copies of Lightning Bolt, and some copies of Fatal Push. Obviously, Fatal Push not gonna be able to deal with Elish Norn.
Not much here. Yeah, we can't turn and burn through our deck with things like Seasoned Pyromancer. The fact that we just got her on the battlefield, this seems pretty brutal, but realistically, a big 5-drop, she's meant to be. It's Mummy. You know, Mummy should be super powerful. We're going to force these. And Fable Mirror Breaker, a Leyline's Binding.
Both of these cards pretty good right now. Obviously, Leyline a little bit stronger because it triggers twice, thanks to Elish Norn.
How many mana tides in the top? Unfortunately, none. They managed to lose their winning in. But
yeah.
We will be seeing them in Athens. They did manage to, I believe, top 16 or something along those lines. So they get themselves an invite to Athens. So we, fingers crossed, maybe they'll turn up with more mana tides in their deck for that, whatever. I think it's Pioneer, that format. Philippo's got back to me. It is 20 copies of Fable the Mirror Breaker in our top 8. Let's have a little look. We're passing it back. I feel like we're just going through the motions here, but like while Elish Norn's on the battlefield,
that is an Omnath. Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, Fable, doesn't look that strong right away, but if you wait a couple turns, you flip it into the Kikijiki Reflection, then you start copying all these Risen Reefs and get a bunch of triggers, maybe the Solitude, then this game is gonna be pretty over pretty quickly. But I think Omnath is going to be a nice one as well. Okay.
We're going to lighten about the Risen Reefs. Stop these triggers a little bit. There's still going to be 2 triggers where we get to draw 2 cards. The value is real. We're going to play a land for the turn. We're going to gain 4 life. I think do we gain 4 life then I get 4 mana because we've got Elish on the battlefield. Getting double triggers from these Omnaths. We're fetching as well. Trigger, like if we're on Modo right now, the screen's just filled with different triggers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like which one? How would you like to stack your triggers? Obviously, we don't have that luxury in the booth, so we're just going to talk you through what is basically happening. Is Omnath is got a lot of triggers on the stack right now, with Elish Norn giving double triggers. So we're getting mana, we're getting life, potentially doing 8 damage if we can get another land drop this turn. Fire and Ice is going to deal with the Mirror Breaker, and yep, that's enough. We're scooping it up. Mummy's pretty good. If you get her on the battlefield,
yeah, I think
pretty good as well.
This is kind of exactly what you want to play against. You want to play against other mid-range decks and just get your value engines online and start drawing a lot of these cards. And in this entire game, Marcus was never under any kind of pressure. So,
alright, so we took game 1 against Scam. Quite simple. Opponent didn't put a lot of pressure on me, and easily took it down with Elish Norn. So let's talk about sideboarding. Against Scam, there's actually not that much to sideboard. I only bring in the 2 Murderous Cut for 2 Risen Reefs. My deck is basically pretty good setup to beat Scam anyway, so let's just bring in a bit more removal. Cut the Risen Reefs because they are kind of weak to their removal spells, to Fury and stuff like that. We want all the Fables because opponent plays Blood Moon. Usually a rule of thumb is, if your opponent plays Blood Moon, definitely leave all the Fables in, of course. And you can cut some Risen Reefs. And yeah, let's look at game number 2.
We wish, but there's currently no more
you.
space. We would like to, we would like for you to be able to play, but there's currently not any more space.
Okay, we're off to the races. We're going to start off with just a fetch land and pass the turn. Try him over on Marcus' side. So no turn 1 Ragavan, no turn 1 Grief with a Scam effect or anything along those lines. Fetching up a Blood Crypt. Now, what sort of powerful 2-drops could we have? If we don't have a powerful 1-drop, I imagine we must have something on 2. Dolphy Voidwalker is our only 2-drop.
You're definitely looking for a fast hand because if this matchup goes long, and yeah, like this Rakdos Scam deck isn't really fast, but you are trying to look for that Ragavan, you know, to start with the Thoughtseizes. Because if the match goes long, I would favor the Elementals side.
And that's a Dolphy Voidwalker that's going to come in the battlefield. This might be the first one me and you have seen on camera, besides in the top 8. So Shadow, not a mechanic we normally see on cards anymore. But
what was the last time we saw a Shadow creature in?
I don't think I think this is the first Shadow creature printed while I've been playing Magic. That's maybe how long ago it was.
Yeah, I think like Time Spiral was maybe the last format where we had Shadow creatures.
Does a lot though, especially if you get to follow up with things like Thoughtseize. Imagine if we like Thoughtseize away and then there's no one here, then we can sacrifice our Voidwalker and cast it ourselves. Super powerful. And we're going to see it.
Okay.
This might bait out something like a Solitude or something like that. Or we might just, we might just take the hit. Our hand might be pretty bad, but can we take the risk of this Voidwalker casting whatever this Thoughtseize takes?
And I think you're kind of just hoping to see a slow hand, like maybe only have a Risen Reef or have a Teferi, take your 3-drop, just start applying some pressure. But looks like Marcus has a bunch of 3-drops. There's a Teferi, there's a Fable, a Risen Reef, Fury, and Solitude, I believe.
That's a good hand.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in there. What's your pick here? Like, obviously, it depends on our hand, but like, I feel like people underestimate Risen Reef. Like, you think, oh, it's just a 1/1, like, yeah, it gets like a trigger when it comes back.
Yeah, it comes with 3 value, and it enables more value later on, but I think kind of Fable is pretty much the same thing, so
yeah, true.
Pick your poison.
Then same with Teferi turns off the scam effect. Fury and Solitude, we know what these cards done. We've seen them multiple times. Super good hand here, I think, for Marcus. I think Mateus also thinks that he's deep in the tank here. What sorts of things is he thinking about? Like, people may just be watching Play Magic for the first sort of time.
Well, now you have perfect information. You have you know your hand, your opponent's hand, every card in play. So you're kind of trying to piece together a game plan, which Mateus was probably thinking, okay, I need to beat down my opponent really fast. This is what I'm going to do. Let's see the hand. Can I really slow you down? Oh wait, I can't really do that. You have too many 3s. So he's trying to formulate a game plan around these cards, but it's going to be pretty hard because Marcus kind of has every angle covered.
Now we're going to get in, or we're going to cash this in for that Teferi. Do you have a Ragavan? We have the option to dash if you want to, but we know that there's a Solitude. Okay, so we're going to cash this in, get our own Teferi. Nice foil one. Already came in with 5 counters, so it looks like we're ticking it up. And then now we know we can dash this Ragavan and nothing can interact with it because of the static ability we see on Teferi Time Raveler. We're going to shock this in. Drop ourselves down to 13 life points. It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, I feel.
Yeah, but this was a pretty good play. You get a Teferi in play, which kind of stops the opponent from getting too much value out of their Fable. Plus the Ragavan, still a nice thing to do. You can try to deal with it with I forgot the cards in hand, but I think there was a Solitude.
Yes, so there's a Solitude Fury. Obviously, we can't use these with the Teferi in the battlefield, but I like this play, right? So we're fetching before the Ragavan connects to try and hit some sort of, clearly in this case, he didn't want the basics to be hit. I know it's a very small chance that we could hit it, but the odds are if they take that, okay, I need this to do that. So fetching before the Ragavan connects, because it is going to connect with that Teferi in the battlefield. We'll get the top card. We'll also make a treasure token. Let's see what it is going to be.
So Mark is demonstrating that he wants to, play around the possible Blood Moon.
And here comes a Leyline's Binding. End of turn, Ragavan comes back to hand. Now, we know there's a lot of 3-drops in hand. Which one are we going to deploy? Risen Reef. I like this because if we do have to do like a Fury or Solitude in the future, we'll be able to get extra value. It already just ramped us by putting in that Sacred Foundry to the battlefield. They do enter tapped all the lands you put into the battlefield of Risen Reef though.
Yeah, like getting rid of Risen Reef always feels so bad. Like it's already a 2/1. It came into play, gave you a free land, and now you're like, well, it's just a 1/1, but I kind of have to kill it because if you keep playing more elementals, you're gonna get more free stuff. So despite the fact that you already got a 2/1, I still have to deal with your card.
Yeah, it's gonna eat a lightning bolt there. I think we're going to dash this Ragavan one more time. I also like just bringing it into play taps. Like, just I'm not even bothered. Yeah, it's getting tapped. We hit only a land off the top, get ourselves another treasure token. And that's a Fury left in hand for Matei. We're ticking Teferi up, back up to 6. And return Ragavan, end of turn. That was an Omnath off the top. Pretty good when you got 4 land in play. Looks like Marcus agrees, and we're just going to play that straight on the battlefield, get our trigger, draw a card. We have a land drop for the turn if we want to do it. We do. Unfortunately, it's not a fetch. It's just a triumph, but we do gain an extra 4 life points there.
Yeah, and Omnath is not exactly the type of card you want to bounce with the Fairy.
And we're going to get this Swamp. Super stacked top 8 though, so if you are just tuning in, we do have 3 creativity decks, 1 Rakdos deck, 1 blue-white hammer, 1 5-color elementals, 1 living end, and 1 rhinos. No Murktide managed to make the top 8 of this event, the largest event since COVID in Europe.
I think actually not even top 16 if I'm looking at this correctly.
I'm looking forward to the power rankings next weekend when Mangucci posts them.
Boros Manatide, 14th place.
Oh, yeah, that's the one we've been cheering with the Manatides all weekend. It's a nice top 16 finish for them.
The highest finishing Murktide player is at 11 and 4. There's a bunch of them, but nobody would have guessed that before the tournament.
No, most played deck going into day 1. Didn't manage to pick up too many into day 2. I think it was about 110 in day 1. Only 10 copies managed to make day 2. None of them managed to make top 16. Looks like the Teferi here is going to get ticked down and bounce this Omnath. Not exactly how we want to be using it, but we do get to draw a card, and that was a grief, so we can take it back out the hand if we choose to go that route. We're going to start off though with a Ragavan. Turn it sideways, connect, get the top card. It's just another land. Godless Shrine. Treasure token created. We do have 3 of them now. Going to cash 2 of them in. I imagine the grief is what we're going to use. And that is what we see. So target you. I'd like to see your hand. And we get a good look at here at home as well.
That's so many cards.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's just so many. We've got Risen Reef, we've got Fury, we've got Solitude, we've got Fable, we have the Omnath that we knew about, and a basic island. That is a stacked hand.
That is a stacked hand, yeah.
I'm not even going to ask you what we take, because I don't think there's a right answer. It's like, well, what could you take? You take this, cool, I've got to deal with that. Take this, we're going to deal with that. Not exactly what you want to see. Marcus is like, yeah, sure, go for it. Have a look. Take what you want.
Malthavish does seem to have 2 non-land cards in hand. I think I saw a Fury and maybe another red card. So I think he's doing a pretty good job of, doing his best of applying some pressure, while trying not to get buried in card advantage too much. But at least Marcus doesn't have a board for now.
And that's Fire and Ice off the top. We've got 5 mana, so we can start hard casting these 5 drops we have in hand. Maybe a Fury, finish off the Teferi on the other side, open up things like our Fire and Ice Instant Speed, our Leylines, Bindings, and our Solitudes if we want to go that route.
And if you're thinking about playing one of these events, I think our top 32 qualified for Athens, and I believe the record was roughly 11 and 4 that was needed. So, not an insanely hard record to get. It's not like you have to win the tournament. So top 32 qualifiers for Athens. You get to play the RC. Lots of really cool prizes there. I think the winner gets $16,000, and they can make it to the Pro Tour.
A lot of money. I love that the RCs give world invites. Like that's like the biggest, most prestigious tournament we can play in Magic the Gathering. Yet through these, we can get 2 players to them every single finals that we hold. Pass the turn back. We know there's a Ragavan in hand. I'm pretty sure there's a Fury in hand as well. Do you offer your Ragavan up for trade here just to see if the Rivers and Reef comes off the battlefield?
Depends on the hand. I would like to continue, applying some pressure, and Ragavan has been hitting, making treasures. Hopefully you can reveal something nice off the top of your opponent's deck. But I don't know what's in the rest of Mutter's hand. We can also cash into the Teferi.
Looks like we are going to offer it up.
Okay.
Would you like to trade your Risen Reef for this Ragavan? And yeah, we do. Tick to Teferi up. Play land for the turn. And pass. Just Fury. Get Teferi off the battlefield.
Yeah. That's just so much value from the elemental deck. Every card is a 2/1.
Yeah, it is. That I play a lot of this deck myself. It is just every card seems like it is a 2/1. Early turns you're kind of 2/1 yourself, but you can generate that like card advantage back so quickly with things like Risen Reef, Omnath, etc. Flood Strand to end the turn. Mateus doesn't look too interested so far, but we are going to see the Fury come down, get rid of the other Fury on the other side. He knows about the Solitude in hand. He knows about the Fable in hand. Fetch, get ourselves another Triumph. And untap. We spoke about it a couple of times today, but a lot of players bringing foil decks. RespectTheCat, Marcus on the right of the screen. One of those players fully foiled his deck, besides one card in his deck is not foil that he was telling me about.
That is dangerous, by the way. I would like to either have more copies of non-foil cards, because I'm always scared of like, oh, what if you know, what if it's like you can tell or whatever. So I would like to mix that up a little bit, but yeah, what's the card?
Force of Negation. He's got one Force of Negation that isn't in foil, and he's like,
okay.
It really upsets him when I mention it. So I'll make sure I mention it on the stream for you. Don't worry about it. And we're going to see Mummy come down here. Alice Schnorn turning off all the triggers on the other side of the battlefield and doubling our own. And on top of that, a 4/7 creature. It's pretty good. Let's see how we plan to come back from this. I guess Terminator's got to be one of the ones we start off with. One of the only cards that can actually deal with the Alice Schnorn. Just having a quick look.
Yeah, I think it just terminated.
Nothing coming out the sideboard that can deal with it. There is a
including the sideboard. I think it just terminated.
It is,
oh,
and we
there
had
it is.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, we still got game here. Fury 3/3 double strike. That can close the game out real quickly with your opponent at 13 life. Marcus respects that and just throws the token in front of it. Untap, draws the turn, land.
Matej has a Ragavan in hand, but he is waiting for the right opportunity. Obviously, he didn't want to trade it there for the token.
So everyone on Mateus' side, he knows about the Solitude, doesn't know about the second card in hand. We know it's just a land. 2 mana, dash this Ragavan. Combat. We're going to exile the Fury, getting a little bit more life, gain 3 life, go up to 15. And I imagine block. Are we allowed to move to blocks?
There it is.
Feign Death. So the Ragavan comes back with a +1 counter on it. A little bit of life is gained for Marcus, 3 points. But that leaves us with 1 card in hand. Passing the turn back to Marcus. Is that a Fury? I think it was a red card. Didn't get a great look at it. Yep, it was a Fury. Fury come down, target that Ragavan. Guess Mateus got something because he's thinking about it.
Yeah, with the flipped Kiki-Jiki, having all these enter the battlefield elementals in play.
And this is what we were talking about. It just feels like now like Marcus is kind of squeezing his way over the top, right?
Yeah, turning the game around. And he's still at 16 life.
Yeah. If we get to untap with the Kiki-Jiki effect, now we can start copying our Furies. And that is exactly what's going to happen. Target this. Make a copy, ETB, we're going to do 4 damage to something. I imagine it's just Dolphy Boardwalker. And then on top of it, it's a 3/3 double striker. This is going to be 12 damage coming across.
Yeah, like if you're sitting in Mateus' seat, there's just not that much you can do.
Okay, we've got one of our, is that Feign Death maybe? Comes back with +1/+1 counter on it.
Take 12.
Jeez. Okay. Big draw step. Not entirely sure what we need, but it needs to be big. Well, we haven't even finished the turn yet. We're going to fetch. Shock in the stomping ground. Yep, that fetch land should move to exile. We're going to put a companion in hand, and we're going to cast it. Draw a load more cards. Oh my word, the value chain on this.
To make things even worse, I'm going to draw 3.
Pass the turn. Okay. Is there a card that gets us back out of this? Don't think the Supreme Verdict's in these colors. There we go. We've moved the land back across. That is now in exile. Free mana. Season Pyro. Okay. Okay. We get 2 more draws.
That's a good one. Yeah, I was just thinking, okay, well, how do you really come back? I guess you need to draw more cards than just one. Pyromancer does that. Okay.
It might be Fable Ragavan. Yep, and that's not going to be enough, unfortunately. Congratulations to Marcus. They're advancing to the top 4. It did kind of one-sided the way through the, as we said, the kind of mid-range battle is what he wants to be playing against. We do have a backup feature match, though, so we're going to just move straight across to that so we can get the most amount of action.
So yeah, took down Scam pretty easily, 2-0. But also because he mulliganed and he never had the turn 1 Ragavan or the turn 1 Grief. So that was pretty simple. Round 2 of the top 8 was against Creativity, which I don't think is as bad as it used to be having Elishnon, and also I know now how to play against this deck. Most of the time you, as the 4-color mental player, you want to be proactive. You have to put the pressure on your opponent to do something. So try to be as aggressive as possible. And we see that here. I don't keep up mana, I don't try to interact with him. I try to just slam my Fable, my Risen Reef, my Omnath. Slam my Elishnon as fast as possible. And he basically has to respect my Solitude, so he pretty rarely will go for a turn 4 Creativity. So most of the time, you have time until turn 5. Just try to handle their Ren and 6, try to handle their Fable, and then slam Omnath and go to town.
Tickets plus the title of winning this tournament.
Yep, and winning a 1,000-person tournament, I mean, this is basically like GP win, right? This is a GP size event. Top 8ing it goes onto your resume, of course, but winning it, I mean, this is like a dream.
And we here already have here our players.
And actually, I think that in the top 4, we've got 12 copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Because player on the left, RespectTheCat, plays 4, Creativity plays 4, and there is another Creativity that plays 4. So we've got, you know, we've got way more Fables than Ragavan. So chat, if you hate Ragavan, that's fine. There isn't, I think there is no Ragavan in the top 8 at all, and very few in the top 16.
And let us know, Twitch chat, who are you rooting for? 5-color Elementals or 5-color Creativity? And also, let us know, what do you think of this top 8? Anyone you're rooting for? Maybe somebody that is not here on camera. Oh, and that Ren and 6 entering, getting that fetch back. We have a Leyline Binding immediately played by Marcus here, exiling that Ren.
I think there is one very specific type of dynamic that I'm going to see here, and that's Leyline Binding on a Leyline Binding. We talked about it multiple times this weekend, and that's because the prevalence of 5-color decks, I mean, they're prolific, they're everywhere. And because of that, Boseiju on Binding, Binding on Binding, or Teferi bouncing it, it's a classic play pattern. So at any point we could see that Binding get bound and Ren get unlocked.
Really excited for Modern to have so many players here this weekend. I definitely got super excited when I saw over 1,000 people signing up for this tournament.
Yeah, and if we see a Keruga deck taking it down, I mean, Twitter will just blow up. Like, people will say, well, so maybe Jegantha isn't that bad after all. Let's ban Keruga.
So here we have Ren and 6 back and winner passing the turn.
Right, so we've got a classic Planeswalker. Oh, that is such a good play. Oh, that is such a good play. RespectTheCat. I really like it. So what happened there is the very minus to bounce your own binding. You release the Wren from underneath, and then the legendary rule kicks in, and Fabian has to decide which one to keep. So effectively, Marcus reset the binding, but got rid of the Wren. That was good.
Such a good play by Marcus. Legendary rule, making that leyline binding is already amazing, just got even better.
Yep. And sometimes when when you're on coverage, you like tunnel vision on a specific game plan, you sometimes you oversee those small things, and nice. Okay, so basically Marcus converted beautifully to Fabian having no Wrens at the end of that chain.
So if you were not watching the stream, the quiz was like a leyline binding just exiled a Wren and 2 Wren and 6. How did that happen? The same leyline binding exiling 2 Wren and 6.
Yep. This shows you that Marcus is no slouch. 14-1 after Swiss, and yeah, full focus, making the best plays. Very, very tight play immediately right off the bat for RespectTheCat.
And I guess Ice here tapping a land.
So what happened is, okay, so for the people who are just tuning in, what happened is there was a Wren and 6 on the battlefield and a different Wren under leyline binding. And Marcus, okay, whoa, nice. And so Marcus bounced his own leyline binding to release the Wren from under the binding. Then there were 2 Wrens on the battlefield. One of them had to be sacked to legendary rule, and then Marcus then replayed that binding to get rid of the second Wren.
But now a binding, binded that binding, releasing Wren. And we have Omnath being played, card drawn, land for the turn, gaining 4 life. So now Marcus is going to have access to 5 mana, 4 from Omnath and 1 from the fetch, which grabbed Plains. Elish Norn here, what do you think of this card?
Yeah, Elish Norn is a relatively fresh addition to Modern because it was released in Phyrexia All Will Be One, and it doesn't see much play, but it's a one of that you see from time to time in those kind of 5 color, Eldamri's Call decks. And so here it is on the screen, 5 mana for a 4/7 Vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a trigger ability you control, it triggers an additional time, so upon Harmonicon. And the other line of text is permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of your opponent's control to trigger. So basically, your Archons, they don't trigger. Leyline binding doesn't trigger. My own binding triggers twice. Yeah, so what you could do is you can target both the Elish Norn and your own token with creativity, but it requires you to have more mana and a bit of a different setup. So you could try to set it up, but so now if a Keruga enters the battlefield, Marcus will draw twice. So he draws 2 and then 2 again, and also actually 3 because of leyline binding.
That is actually insane, and a lot of value here by Marcus.
Oh no, the binding belongs to Fabian. Okay, we're good. Okay, I saw. Yeah, this game is wild already.
Wren now gone. That Omnath took care of it.
And I think Marcus has got like, what, 7 cards in hand? Like literally a full grip, a 4/7 Elish Norn, and Omnath. Okay, actually, I think he's cleaning up. He's got 8 cards in hand, he has to clean up. Embarrassment of riches.
And here we have Fabian untapping, drawing. And what potentially can get Fabian out of this?
Right, I think it's difficult because your best answer is leyline binding, but it doesn't trigger under Elish Norn. So I'm not even sure Fabian has a way. So to fairy bounce Elish, that's one way to do it, and I'm not sure if there is any other way to do it. So difficult spot. I think Marcus is heavily favored now.
Yeah, this game looks going very well for Marcus here. RespectTheCat. And in this case, respect this Elish Norn. Teferi, And a
Oh,
scoop
that
there
was...
from Fabian. We are going for a game number 2 here. Let's take a look at these
Alright,
players.
so we took down game 1 against Creativity, quite impressive with the Elishnon, like Omnath into Elishnon on turn 5. Let me tell you, very good against Creativity.
Yeah, they can...
And
they can
sideboarding
use
we
their
have,
deck in front of them.
against Creativity, I bought in 2 Murderous Cut, 1 Force of Negation, and the 1 Aura of course. Usually cut 2 Deadcons, 2 Fable. Not that Fable or Deadcons are bad against Creativity, but I do think they are pretty much the worst cards in the deck when it comes to this matchup. So yeah, Fable usually fine, but they also have the fairies, they can bounce your tokens. That okay, kills tokens, but not that amazing. So yeah, like I said, sideboard guide is in the description, go check it out if you want to play this deck. Let's look at game number 2.
Yep.
Which is actually seems like a very LT meta game right now.
Yeah, like people, everybody expected Murktide, and Murktide was 10%. So it was 100 decks, so it sounds like a lot. But
And
if you,
none top 8.
exactly, and there was 1,000 people they won, over 1,000. So then 100 Murktide players doesn't look as scary.
We definitely had times where the meta breakdown was very different. I remember when Uro was a thing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I did enjoy those
And
times.
Oko, Uro.
Okay, I didn't enjoy Oko. I mean, I didn't enjoy Uro as much as I enjoyed Mystic Sanctuary. But that's a different conversation. Sanctuary died for Uro's sins. But again, different conversation.
And here we have our players already starting game number 2. As we know, both these decks run triumphs, which means that usually there is no first or second drop, especially in Marco's side, because we know there's Keruga, which means that every permanent costs at least 3.
Yeah, so now we see, I think it's a Ketra Triumph plus Sacred Foundry for Fabian and a Rogren Triumph for Marcus. We see Ice on a land to prevent a Fable of the Mirror Breaker or Teferi from resolving.
Yeah, and we've seen Ice being played quite a bit by Marcus. What do you think of Fire and Ice?
Yeah, so it's actually good that you said and the Ice, because I think the Ice part is what makes it so playable, because a lot of decks in Modern right now are all about the third turn, because on the third turn you play Cascade into Rhinos, or on the third turn you play Cascade into Living End, or on the third turn you play Teferi, or on the third turn you play Fable. And so icing a land on the third turn in the upkeep is a way to make the opponent unable to do it, while you yourself then untap and do the thing. So time walking the opponent on turn 3 is the main purpose, but you can also tap any blocker, tap a potential attacker. Fire isn't irrelevant. It does come up against creature decks, but as we see now, there aren't that many creature decks, so it's ice time, baby.
We saw Marcus play Risen Reef, Fabian played Dress Down. Beginning of Fabian's turn, the Dress Down is gone, and now Marcus is to deal with this Risen Reef plus whatever Marcus has in hand with not that much mana available. So let's see what Fabian gets to do here. By the way, we have an update on the other feature match, on the other semifinal. So it looks like, drum roll, Ben Jones lost game number 1 on the backup feature match, which means that Ben is now down a game against
Rhinos.
Rhinos, yeah.
Okay, so now we see Dwarven Mine, get a Goblin. I mean, Goblin token, but it's a Dwarf 1/1. Thankfully, the type doesn't really matter. And a stacked hand for Marcus. Like, I think I saw Omnath, Dead Gone, another Reef, like a completely stacked hand.
It's going to be a very interesting game here. Marcus definitely wanting to keep the lead up, already up a game, wanting to close this as soon as possible to guarantee a spot in the finals.
Fetching out basic planes. I think we'll see Omnath come down, and Omnath will not only trigger itself and draw a card, it will also trigger Risen Reef.
Yeah, and Omnath is one of those cards that you definitely don't want to resolve. So Fabian thinking of an answer.
I think so. You have to think about the whole situation, right? Because why would Marcus just tap out like that? And I think the reason is that he might have Orvar in hand and he's not afraid of a potential creativity. Because otherwise, I wouldn't really expect Marcus to tap out like that.
And we have here Leyline binding the Omnath. So the issue with Leyline binding is a great card. Don't get me wrong, but the triggers already happened, right? The Reason Reef trigger already happened. It's not like a counter.
Exactly. So
the permanent already entered the battlefield.
So if Fabian plays another Dwarven Mine, he could creativity for 2. But I think he drew 2 Archons, so that's tricky. A Renin 6?
Oh, look how cute that dwarf is.
Yeah.
So Renin 6 is really good against Reason Reef because you can minus Ren, deal 1 damage, and the Reason Reef is gone. And now that 3 mana creature doesn't seem so scary anymore in that graveyard.
I'm curious if winner Fabian has got creativity but opted out of it because of an Orvar, which was kind of shown there. Oh, we've got a powerful play here. Wow, Teferi, Bouncy Binding. We've talked about it time and time again this weekend. Leyline Binding is arguably the best removal spell in the format, but it's very vulnerable to counter interaction.
Definitely, and we see that here over and over again. But it also allows you for cool interactions like we saw last game, where Marcus was able to take advantage of the legendary rule, return the binding that was on a Ren when there was another Ren on the battlefield, making that Fabian had to choose one of the Rens.
This is devastating. We've got Teferi, we've got Omnath, we've got Hardcast Fury. I mean, I think we are approaching scoop them up territory. That was absolutely vicious.
We see Thoughtseize on Fabian Zand, and that is just not going to make it at this point.
So right now, he might just have to go for it, because otherwise the game isn't getting that much better. Also, with so much mana of Omnath, I could really expect next turn to just take Keruga to hand, play it, draw like 3 cards.
And here, Fabian taking time to decide Leyline binding the Fury.
Yeah, binding costs 2, because there is no black source. It had to be played main phase because of Teferi. But now again, binding is vulnerable to counter interaction. It can get, for example, Leyline bound as well. It can get Bousejud.
So now Fabian down to 13, if my map doesn't fail me.
Okay, I can see mana being tapped. We've got just a Fury as a creature. Just like 3/3 double striker, you know, to engage in combat. We return Keruga. I see Fire Ice in hand. So while Ice isn't relevant anymore, Fire is, because you can fire a dwarf that's targeted with creativity.
Yeah, and here Marcus has so many cards in hand.
Yeah.
And that Teferi just making sure Fabian doesn't have interaction, making it much more difficult for a comeback.
Yep, Fabian has got 4 cards, and the cards are specifically Dress Down, Creativity, Double Archon.
You do have a dwarf now, right? The land that gives you a dwarf. So you can try to go for creativity.
Yeah, but now you play Dress Down.
Oh!
So you would creativity into, you know, into a creature that doesn't have any text.
That's true. Dress Down is still on the battlefield.
Yep. So you would have to just pass the turn now. This is a very awkward position. Now there is 6 mana on the field, so there is no Hardcast Archon on the next turn, because that's another thing that could help. So I have Fabian's position really, yeah, he's really far behind.
At this point, Fabian needs a miracle to come back out of this one.
He does. He creativities anyways.
And
And that does it.
That's it. Fire the dwarf. And
Yep.
this game, it looked like an easy game for Marcus.
Okay, so this was my third match against Creativity in this tournament, and all of them were 2-0, which is quite impressive. So yeah, what can I say? Feels like the matchup is not as bad as it used to be. Let's go to the final match against Rhinos, which usually I'm not a big fan of this matchup. It can be pretty tough if they have a really good hand with a couple of cascade spells. But this time we got pretty lucky because my opponent mulliganed to 5 and even pitched another card to the Gemstone Caverns. So I was feeling kind of confident at that point, and yeah, we will see how it goes. Also a thing to mention is he's playing 3 Mystical Dispute in the main board, which is I've never seen before, and which is really tough because resorting my Teferi on turn 3 seems pretty unrealistic. Let's look how the match went.
Drawing the opening hands, and we do have a Gemstone Cavern. Talk me through this one.
Okay, so if you're in the draw, you can exile a card from your hand, put it into play before the game starts. But Marco being on 5 cards, that is pretty brutal. Like, yeah, sure, you can get ahead on mana that way, but you're gonna have 3 cards in hand.
And we're going to ditch a Fire and Ice for it. It does have a counter, so it will tap for all mana. And this is one way of us being able to get underneath a turn 3 Teferi. Being able to turn 3 ourselves. Already have the mana advantage.
Okay.
Having a look at the hand, I think we've got a Forest plus a Charlotte's Agent in the hand, so we will have the turn 2 Cascade, exactly as we read it up.
Yeah, and Marco is certainly looking for a fast opening hand. Like, he really wants to fire off those cascade spells, and, you know, turn 3, turn 4, get some Rhinos, start attacking. Because if the game goes long, then we've seen what these Omnat triggers and Risen Reef triggers can do.
Speaking to Marcus, he said, look, I think I can win the matchup. You know what I mean? I feel like I could be a little bit favored here, but if they do the Rhinos thing of turn 3 Rhinos, turn 4 Rhinos, turn 5 Rhinos, you know, it's too much. I'm not good at sweeping the board. I'm very good at, like, you know, 1 for 1 and getting a bit of a card advantage going 2 for 1. We'll see how it pans out here. Do we have the turn 3 Rhinos? That's a Mystical Dispute in hand. Fire and Ice.
That's the thing with the Elementals deck. Pretty much every card in the deck is a 2 for 1, and we have seen in the quarterfinals, you know, what happens if this deck plays against another slow mid-range deck. Marcus was able to completely destroy Mateusz in a match against Ragdo Scam, but in this match, Marco can come out really fast with, you know, multiple copies of Rhinos just, you know, being played at instant speed. So we'll see what happens here.
Maybe we don't have the we've got an instant way to cascade, because if we had the sorcery speed, there was nothing we need to play around over on Marcus's side. Looking at the elemental list here,
I really like this. Marco, you know, not having the cascade spell on turn 3, but realizing, well, you're gonna have 3 mana next turn. I really don't want you to play Teferi here, so I'm just gonna tap your land in the upkeep and make sure you don't play Teferi.
It looks like we did draw the outburst off that, as well as multiple blue spells, and one of them being a Charlotte's Agent, which we are going to play this turn. We're going to start cascading, and this is where it starts. We start putting 10 power on the battlefield. Let's see if I can get Charlotte's Agent on the screen. Cascade, a mechanic we don't see too often, but very, very powerful when we do see it cast, or spells with it.
3 mana, 2/2, make 2 4/4 tokens. That's a pretty solid deal.
And we did have the turn 3 Teferi. We're going to have to bring it in now. Deal with one of these Rhinos. We will draw a card.
Yeah, so a very heads up play by Marco there, tapping the land in the upkeep, making sure Marcus doesn't resolve Teferi before he can play the cascade spell. Yeah, now it's a little bit too late for Teferi, because now, yeah, sure, you bounce a token, but I still get to attack with 2 creatures, and I see a violent outburst in Marco's hand.
Yeah.
So despite mulliganing to 5 and playing a cavern on turn 0, this game can be very, very quickly over.
And this is where it's going to be rough. These main deck Mystical Disputes are going to be huge, because we've got things like Omnath, Risen Reef. we can target, and we're choosing not to target if we pull it for this Risen Reef. Land for the turn and just pass. Another load of rhinos we're going to have enter the battlefield here. 1 mana, I'm going to ley lines of binding of this rhinoceros. So still only 10 power on the battlefield. And now we're going to Solitude, and this is where we're going to start getting some value,
Wow,
right?
okay.
Risen Reef trigger. Put another land into play, so we're ramping up. Solitude's going to take out, dropping us down to 6. Doing this on our end step, so we, they don't have access to counter magic. Crash across for 6.
So things happened pretty quickly, but what happened was Leyline Binding took care of one of the tokens. Outburst into Rhinos resolved. Marco made 2 more tokens, and then another token was dealt with the Solitude. But that still leaves Marco with 2 creatures in play, and I think Marcus is down to 2 cards.
I think over on Marco's side, we've got a... we're missing land drops is what we're missing here. We've got multiple blue spells in hand, one of them being Murktide, and I think we do have a couple of Mystical Disputes. Maybe saving for something like a non-naf, but then also there's a Cavern on the other side, so it wouldn't really do much, but this is a great target if we have it.
3 mana left, though.
Oh, your Risen Reef's ramped us enough that we can just pay the mana.
The extra land from Risen Reef is going to make all the difference here.
We've told about this. This card, it just looks like a 1/1 for 3 mana. Yeah, okay, as an ETB, but it generates so much value if left unchecked. And now Marco in the tank. Do I fire this off now? Do I not? I might as well fire it off, stop the turn, right? Because other than that, this card is going to be dead. We might be able to attack the Teferi down, but the Rhino's probably going to get bounced if it resolves.
Yeah, it depends. You can fire off the Mystical Dispute here and make sure there's only Teferi and Risen Reef in play, but at that point, your Rhino's going to get bounced into your hand, and then you're going to have a 2/2 without Trample that can be chump blocked by Risen Reef, which means that Teferi would very likely still stay on the battlefield.
Here comes the Brazen Borer in response. So we do have a couple of threats on the battlefield, but our follow-up play is a Fable, the Mirror Breaker. Seeing it so much this weekend, Cass does so many things. Here comes the land off the top. Fire, is it? Fire and Ice, 1/1. Okay, that's good. That's a nice 2-for-1 for us here. Come across for 5 points of damage.
Yeah, and Marco, realizing that this game is a damage race now, just plays the Brazen Borer there in response to the Teferi, just so he can get an extra creature into play and keep attacking.
So it looks like we're going to pay 1 blue here and follow up being a Murktide. That is pretty good. How many big can we make it? I think we've got at least 4 instants and sorceries if we want to go that route. It looks like we're just making it a 6/6.
Yeah, and the region looked surprisingly good all weekend in the Team Rhinos deck.
It's kind of like plan B, right? Like we've kind of exhausted all our Cascade spells, everything's gone to the graveyard, fetch lands, etc. And we're just going to use this Fable, tick up 2, discard 2 more Fables. Here comes Omnath. This can gain us a little bit of life back if we get some lands.
All right, here we go. Omnath, draw a card, play a fetch land, get another trigger, get another land, get another trigger.
So if people don't know the triggers, I'll see if I can get it up on the screen for you. But the first one is we are going to gain 4 life when it enters the battlefield. The second one is we're going to gain 4 mana of all types besides black. And then the third type, the third time we're going to see it is, I'm not sure if this is going to show up on the screen properly. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen. And the fourth one is we do 4 to each of our opponents and planeswalkers that they control. Oh, this is the arena one. Let's see if we can change that. Okay, let's go for that one. There you go. That's better. There you go. There it is. That's the one that we got. It only costs 4 mana, not the extra one. It was not rebalanced. But such a good card at getting you back in the game if it goes unchecked. Just every land drop is going to gain you life. Every second land we play for the turn with either Risen Reef or fetch lands, we're going to gain extra mana to be able to cast 2 or 3 spells a turn.
Yeah, looks like Marco is just out of gas. Meanwhile, Marcus' deck is firing off on all cylinders.
And we're going to see Marcus take down game number 1.
Okay, I'm really lucky here I got game 1 because I was not thinking I could win this match when I looked at my opponent's deck list. I don't really know why he didn't play his Shardless Agent on turn 3. That would be interesting for me, but Anyway, I kinda stabilized on 4 life, which is quite lucky, but yeah, we got the win. Okay, when it comes to sideboarding against Rhinos, I bring in the 3 Dispute, 1 Force, and 2 Murderous Cut. You really wanna have Dispute to protect your Teferi, to counter their counters, counter their subtleties, mostly. Most of the time you have to slam your Teferi on turn 3, but if you can help it, slamming it on turn 4 with a Dispute up is a lot better, but most times you can't afford to do that. Cards I cut are 2 Deadgons and 4 Risen Reef. Risen Reef, not amazing against the deck with 4 Fire Eyes and Furies. So, yeah.
You almost get the Triomes at turn 1 is the play that we kind of see. And just fetch land pass. If you look at both deck lists, turn 3 is the turn, right? All our powerful cards tend to be free drops, going into our more powerful ones on 4 and 5s. Land go. And it looks like one of the gemstones was stayed in, and that's what we're going to see for the turn. Doesn't have a counter, so it is just a colorless land.
It still produces mana, you know, still good enough.
Yeah. Didn't get a good look at what that one is. Obviously, you're working with a full foil deck over on Marcus's side on the left of your screen. We're going to see a double fetch and playing around Blood Moon.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. You can bring in Blood Moon, but you know both of these players are experienced, and neither of them is going to just straight up lose. Oh wow, you have Blood Moon. I forgot about that. So they're going to be fetching, you know, basics if they can if they can afford that in the early game. And for that reason, I think maybe not even bringing in the Blood Moon is probably the best play.
And this is going to be the first Teferi. Is this going to resolve? It looks like it might eat a Force Negation. We'll see how we fetch up here. I'm going to look, see if we can see a Blood Moon in the deck. Didn't get a good look there, but we're going to fetch up a Forest.
Force of Negation. If I think if Marco had Force of Negation in his hand, he probably would try to fetch a different land. So this kind of gives it away. Maybe he's gonna just
ditch blue cards. Wait. Oh, I think we're gonna create some Rhinos in response.
Oh, okay. So Marco perfectly happy with. I'm gonna make 2 tokens. I know you're gonna bounce one. I'm gonna have to attack the fairy with the other one, but I'll take this play, you know, to keep my counterspell in my hand and create some board presence.
And we do see that the subtleties come in, and then we're going to use the Fire and Ice ditched for the Force Negation to get that to fair off the battlefield. We get to untap with 8 power, exactly how Marco wanted this to go. Just a 2-turn clock here. That's a land off the top. Swing. Drop Marcus down to 8.
Okay, so Marcus saying, all right, you know what? I'm gonna attack for more damage there. Use the Fire Ice. Oh wait, no, okay, never mind. That goes off.
And Blood Moon comes down, but we've played around it. You know, we fetched a couple of basics over on our side there. We still do have the island and the plains, but only a mountain. We have been shut off of our green mana sources now.
So it is still relevant. If Marcus doesn't have a forest, like straight up forest in his hand, he's not going to be able to cast Omnath in this situation, for example.
Looks like he doesn't just know around, but he does have Fable in hand that I can see. Leyline's Binding. It's going to cost 3 mana because we do have 3 basic types here, so it does get reduced by 3. It's going to take out one of these Rhinos. Murktide was the draw. Unfortunately, we don't have access to our second blue source currently. Rhino's going to come across, crush, hit Marcus down to 4. Does Marcus have an answer here? Fire and Ice. We're going to ice the basic plains in the upkeep. We're going to cast Binding in response. Float the mana. Target the token. Token's gone. Okay, that's the threats off the battlefield. Another Blood Moon drawn off the ice. Just a basic forest in play there. Force Negation. Again, we're seeing a Blood Moon here, right? This is a Blood Moon game. Back and forth. Who's going to be able to break serve first? Teferi. Okay, it's Force Negation.
Yeah, now Marco paying the price for his own Blood Moon has to exile the blue card from his hand instead of paying the mana for Force of Negation because he just has a bunch of mountains in play.
I think that was another gemstone off the top plus the Blood Moon in hand, so not much. Now we're going to tick up this Fable. The treasure token, if we get to attack, which we know we will be able to, it's going to generate the green mana that we need. That now opens up a lot more doors for us. Also, we did not discard to the Fable. We did not discard any cards or redraw. Another Fable. Are we turning the corner?
It looks like it, and if Marco didn't have that Blood Moon in play, he would have been able to play the Murktide.
And that is it.
But yeah,
He's
wow.
going to offer the hand, and Marcus is going to take this down with his 5-color Elementals deck. That is RespectTheCat for everybody watching at home. What a game. He went undefeated all game, losing one game to Hammer Time, where they managed to get a turn 2 kill against him. I was like, what's you want us? He went,
We got 2-0, we got the win. So yeah, that was it. That was my journey through Prague, winning probably the biggest tournament I've ever played and the most important for me. And yeah, thanks everybody for your support and congratulations. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more Keruga and other elemental brews, this is the right channel for you, so subscribe, like the video, and I see you guys next time.